Welcome. Happy Friday. This is so exciting. This is the very first inaugural Cultivating Healthy Minds for the Oklahoma Farm Bureau. My name is Alisen Anderson. Joining me today will be Adrienne DeSutter and Dillon Johnson. We are so excited that you are here and you are a part of our very first Cultivating Healthy Minds session 1. Remember, this is a 4-part session from August, September, and October. We will have 3 Zoom meetings the second Friday of each month, starting at noon, and you will be able to sign up for each one of those events, and it will go straight to your inbox. So all you have to do is click that Zoom invite, and you are in. We will also be recording all of these sessions for you, and you will be able to listen to them at a later time. We're so excited that you're here. We know that this is such an important topic, and we wanted to make sure that our members and beyond are able to get really great content and education in terms of mental health. My name is Alisen Anderson. Like I stated, my husband and I are the Young Farmers and Ranchers state chairs for this year. We are also on the state committee. And so I just wanted to welcome you. We just want you to know that Oklahoma Farm Bureau loves you, and that we want you all to be very, very just open and honest with this entire session. So without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce you to Dillon Johnson. Dillon Johnson is our District 6 state YFNR representative. He's on our state committee. He farms and ranches in Ottawa County, and he will be discussing a little bit of his testimony of his mental health journey. So let's all welcome Dillon. He's going to trade me seats.
Doing it the old-fashioned way, rolling right into the screen. Like Alisen said, my name's Dillon Johnson, and thank you all for being here today. I'm excited for this. I feel like we've been working on this for a while, and so I know there's a lot of energy for this, and this is an important topic, obviously, that there's no better person to talk about today than Adrienne with this topic of having the conversation. So as Alisen said, so I farm and ranch with my dad and my grandpa up here in Ottawa County, so in the Afton area. And so I'm in my late 20s. So I'd say, my first awareness of mental health issues, and I went to college, we had sessions on stress and anxiety for class and testing, and who in college, especially when you're getting started, I was at OSU, doesn't have issues with that, just like everyone does here in their jobs. So, stress and anxiety aren't new, but what I kind of want to touch on was something I dealt with whenever I moved back here 3 years ago. So this will be a review for those that have seen the magazine or maybe my video and the promotion for this event. This will be a little bit of review, but hopefully we have some folks on here outside the organization or folks that haven't seen that, but kind of the quick rundown. So I went to college and then actually lived in DC, and I worked on the Hill for a member of Congress from Oklahoma. And then actually had plans when I left there. I was going to go to grad school. I was going to go to grad school in England, and then had, my 5-year plan to live overseas and work a little bit, and then eventually come back and work in the US. And then, maybe down the road, come back and work on the family farm. That was my plan down the road, not my plan when I was in my 20s, a single guy that had his mind to go overseas and eventually live in London was where I was planning on living. So COVID happened, obviously, and I know everyone's world changed during COVID. What that meant for me was coming back here and ending up back living with mom and dad, and then grad school plans fell through, my funding fell through because of COVID, and so I was ending my time in DC. So I was like, well, I'll just stay here and help dad and grandpa until I figure out what's next. And so I came back in the summer, and how busy the summer is on the farm. We get through the fall, it's all kind of still a bit of a honeymoon phase, it was all new. And then kind of as I got into that first winter back, I think kind of started to settle on me that, all these plans I had been disrupted. My life had been kind of turned upside down. I was back where I had been living in the city, planning to move to another city with a bunch of young people. I was, now back living, I'd moved in a house by myself out in the country on our farm. So I was living by myself, didn't have the community that I had in DC or the community that came with my grad program. So I got, kind of gradually realized I was getting lonely. I'll just, I'll get over it. I'll get settled here. And what happened was little by little, it got harder and harder to get up and go to work. And I found less enjoyment in the things that I liked to do before. I was less excited about the prospect of being back. And what happened was I got into a pretty severe depressive state. And so really for 5 weeks, it was just a struggle to get out of bed and go to work. And I come from a family that they're very supportive, we're very close, but this just wasn't something that I think that hopefully I think a lot of people here can relate with. Like, it wasn't something that we talked about growing up. We didn't talk about depression, anxiety, mental health issues, mental health treatment. You just kind of, you all know we're in the agriculture industry. You just kind of grin and bear it and, stiff upper lip, and we'll get through it. And I tried that for a while, but if anyone that struggled with these issues knows that's not a sustainable way to handle this. So I think I'm happy that I'm getting to talk today when we're talking about having the conversation, because the first step for me was sitting down with my parents. So obviously my dad, I work with my dad. He's my dad, but also my boss. And a lot of people here can understand that. I'm sitting down with him and said, listen, I'm struggling. I'm not doing good. And I'm feeling depressed, which the first time I used that word, like I said, we've kind of been conditioned to not talk about that stuff, just push through it. I said, I'm dealing with this and I need some help. So I took off some work. I saw, I looked at professional counseling in Tulsa and Joplin. That was just too far. So I looked closer to home, talked to family, found people that dealt with similar issues with this, talked through it, took some space from it. So like I said, took a little bit of time off work, so I could actually really think this through, talk through it, kind of put words to what I was dealing with, because really what I found was I didn't really have a vocabulary to deal with this. And so it took talking to people that had dealt with these issues and handled this to figure out what I was feeling. And then through that, it was, I worked my way out of it. And then I tell people I've been in good shape with this for several years, but as I told Dustin and Rebecca when I was talking for the article and the video, this is something that never completely goes away. So but the only way that those of us that have dealt with this and are dealing with this and have friends and family dealing with this, the only way that depression, anxiety, these issues win is if we stop talking about it and we stop working towards it. So Adrienne, obviously, she's here to talk about having the conversation. She knows a lot more about this than me, but just from my own experience, I can say the first step is just find the person closest to you if you're struggling and just say, hey, I'm not doing too well. Let me explain this. And then also what I found is emphasizing that there's not an answer, right now. If I knew exactly why I was depressed and I knew how to fix it, I would fix it. So that was part of it, explaining to my parents, we're gonna have to work through this and figure this out together. There's nothing you did, there's nothing you can do to fix it right now, but I just need you to be here and listen and be present. And I'm blessed that they were, and I have a great community, but we have a great community here at Farm Bureau. So like I said in my video, if anyone's listening and struggling with this, you have a community, you have people to talk to, even if that's me, because I can be that person to you, and I want to hear and I want to help. So anyway, I'm not going over my time, which if anyone see me talk is not surprising, but I'll kick it back over to Alisen. Thank you all.
Dillon, thank you so much. We are so blessed to have Dillon a part of Oklahoma Farm Bureau in many different aspects. Speaking of Oklahoma Farm Bureau, we want to say thank you so much to all of the subcommittee that has helped us with creating Cultivating Healthy Minds. This was a joint venture between Young Farmers and Ranchers and the Women's Leadership Committee, also with our Oklahoma Farm Bureau staff. So we're just so thankful for that subcommittee. They have planned essentially for almost 1 year for this entire series. So we're just so thankful. I am so excited to introduce to you all Miss Adrienne DeSutter. A lot of us got to hear her at our annual convention a couple months ago. Adrienne is a part of her husband's 4th generation farm family in Illinois, where they farm corn and soybeans along with a small herd of cattle and a small herd of children. With a master's degree in counseling and her self-proclaimed master of farm family chaos, Adrienne recognizes a need for mental health advocacy in agriculture and began partnering with ag businesses and organizations to promote healthy minds and prevent farmer suicide. So without further ado, Adrienne, welcome to Oklahoma Farm Bureau Session 1, Cultivating Healthy Minds.
I am so excited to be here. It is kind of sad that we're not in person because I just thrive off of people's smiles and energy, and I'm going to give it to you like you're here and just go with it. Okay, you guys. Thank you so much to Alisen. Alisen and I met through Farm Bureau, of course. We're very active here in Illinois. My husband was our chair a few years ago of the Young Leader Committee in Illinois, and then served with Alisen on the state committee or on the national committee as well. So Alisen, you're doing great things. Love to see all that you are doing. And Minion as well, I assume is somewhere in the mix. We met at the women's committee or women's communication boot camp through Farm Bureau as well. So you guys in Oklahoma, you are doing good things. You've got some fantastic people working there, and I love it. I am going to tell you guys a little bit about myself throughout this this webinar, but I just want to say that I did not grow up in agriculture, and never would I have ever dreamed that this is the conversation I would be having right now. I married a farmer. We met in, let's see, 2011. So I think we're coming up on 12 years of when I was kind of entering the agriculture picture. And we got married in, let's see, 2014, I believe. And we had our first baby in 2016. And even in 2016, I attended a young farmer event where they did a silent auction. And you guys know what I did? This is how far removed I am, okay, from agriculture. See this here? See this bad boy? This is like a giant red combine for my little sweetie to play with, right? And I was so excited because I won. And when I won the silent auction and grabbed the red combine, and I walked up to Drew, my husband, and I was like, check out what we won. And he was like, you have a red combine? Like, we don't use red. And he was not happy. Like, it was a real thing. And everyone around him was like so shook up that I bid and won a red combine. And it is still in our house today because I don't believe in discrimination. And so we keep all the red combines around here, but we do happen to have a lot more green and some blue as well. But anyway, that is what I have learned. Now I will tell you, you are, yes, going to be taking some advice and suggestions from me. So you can trust that over the past few years, I've learned a little bit more about the semantics of agriculture, because you guys, you're kind of a club. I'm going to count myself now that I get to be involved in this. We're kind of a club in agriculture. We're kind of a community through Farm Bureau and all the different organizations and events, and even just our local, like small, tiny towns. Like, you know who the farmers are. And a lot of times, you know, because in agriculture, we step up. That's what we do. We look out for each other. I'm not going to say there aren't some, let's be realistic. There aren't some, there's some competition. There's some comparison, right? But ultimately, we all know a story about something good that has come in agriculture when a family has suffered some type of tragedy, or there's some illness or something that's come up, and that family needed to get their crop out or crops in or whatever. We all have those kind of feel good stories about how agriculture has stepped up. I know I read in the Farm Week over the COVID period, there was a farmer down over near you guys. I think, I don't know if it was Oklahoma, but it was near you somewhere. And he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And they had, across the entire nation, people donating truckloads of grain to donate to this family because he had, you know, he was a young guy. And that's what I'm talking about. You know, that was a bigger one, but shoot, even the small things. A week or two ago, we had, I guess it's been a couple of weeks now, we had a bad storm here in Illinois, and there was a family who had this giant bur oak tree that had been on their property for generations. I mean, it was huge, and it had been there a long time, and it got knocked over in this storm. And so they did a big article on it, and the coolest thing happened that they wrote in the article, and I know the guy that this happened to. A neighbor came by and brought him a brand new, real small bur oak tree and said, hey, I know this doesn't replace, you know, what you had, but I just want you to know that I'm glad you're still here, and I'm glad that, you know, like that I'm thinking of you. And just the small gestures like that, right? That's what I'm talking about when I say egg steps up. Like, we know that if something were to happen, or if some tragedy, or if some even just last minute issues came up, that there would be people around because of the community that we have in agriculture, right? And I think what's part of the reason that happens is because agriculture doesn't only just step up, but we also seek to step up. Vigilant observation is part of a farmer's daily job. And I read something recently. I'm going to read it directly to you because I love how it's said. From noticing a sick animal before it has a fever to an early sign of insects on a crop, these early observations can lead to earlier treatment and better outcomes. So that's what we do, right? That's what, especially those farmers that are out there all the time, we can use, though, that same skill, that vigilance and observation, to notice when friends, family, neighbors, etc., employees are not themselves. And we can use that same vigilance and that same stepping up for people, and not just people who are going through depressive episodes or dealing with suicidal thoughts and anxiety, but just in general. All people we want to look out for and notice when someone's having a bad day, right? But the story that Dillon is telling that is so important. And Dillon, I'm just going to speak directly to you. I can't see you, but I just want you to know that, dude, I am so excited in the most loving way that you are here and that you shared this story. And I'm genuinely getting tears in my eyes, and I totally had goosebumps as you were talking, because your story is so similar to people that I love. And I will tell you that I selfishly started doing advocating for mental health in agriculture because there were farmers that I know and farmers that I love that were going through some of the same things that you were. And I know there's so many out there. And I needed to make sure that I was doing everything I could to let those people that I love know that there is absolutely hope. They're absolutely not alone. I know that's a cliche thing to say, but I mean, people like you, Dillon, who come out of the woodwork and say, it's me, I'm the one that's dealing with this. It's not just you. It's a lot of us. That stepping up is what provides hope to those people. And that's what all of you today, I hope, are here to gain, is the confidence in whatever way you can to step up and show that you are that safety zone for people who need to have those conversations. Again, from the serious stuff, from the hardest of hard, all the way to just someone having a bad day, The thing is, even though we seek and we step up in agriculture, we don't always do that when it comes to mental health, right? And I'm going to share my screen with you here in just a second. And I want to let you know that the reason we don't, in my opinion, the reason we don't step up is because, honestly, talking about stress is really uncomfortable, right? Talking about stress in general, talking about mental health in general is just extremely uncomfortable. It's awkward. I'm not going to say it's not. Honestly, I was a school counselor for several years before I transitioned to staying at home and doing this independent work in mental health. And I will tell you that I had to have conversations with sixth graders asking whether or not they were considering suicide. So I'm going to tell you right now that the conversation is always awkward. That doesn't go away, right? The thing is, when we first started, my husband and I first started talking about mental health, and we wrote an article in our Illinois Farm Bureau's publication, Farm Week, and a woman reached out to us who was actually an acquaintance, I would say, and she said, I just want to thank you so much for writing that article. The article was just about mental health, and it was back in like 2018, I think. So mental health wasn't on the radar in agriculture. But she said, my father-in-law died by suicide not long ago. And people would come up to me after his death and they just wouldn't bring him up. It was like the obvious elephant in the room, but people wouldn't say his name because honestly, I think they were just uncomfortable. They didn't want to ask how things were because they were uncomfortable, and they were uncomfortable with the responses. And I get it. Like, if that's where y'all are, I get that, because it is, even for me as a counselor, it is still uncomfortable to have conversations about tragedy, right? But what my friend said is, I wish someone would get a little uncomfortable for me. I wish someone would have the bravery, the courage, right, to put themselves in an uncomfortable position and talk with me about this. Because guess how uncomfortable I am right now living without him? Guess how uncomfortable our holidays are, how that whole experience was, how having to talk with police and having to see his body, that's really uncomfortable, and it still is. And I wish someone would just meet me where I'm at and get a little uncomfortable to talk about it. And it got me thinking when she said that, what if we got a little uncomfortable before a tragedy, right? What if we got a little uncomfortable and had these conversations before we're at a visitation line, or before someone experiences loss, or even before someone has to go through those severe depressive episodes? What if we made it more normal to have conversations when people just look like they're struggling? Maybe they're not in so deep, or maybe we know that something is happening in someone's life. What if we got a little uncomfortable and had these conversations? And here's the thing, you guys in agriculture, you're really brave people. You know that? You can do hard things, and I've seen it, okay? This is a picture I took, about 3 days ago. This is our old barn. I can see it right out my window right now. And I don't know if you look there's a really small thing at the top of the barn. That would be my husband, okay? And Alisen, he said there is no screenshotting this or taking pictures or sharing this, but he did give me permission to share. If you look here, my husband has rigged up a platform on a skid steer, and he has put a couple of ladders up so that he could paint the barn himself instead of hiring anyone else to do it professionally, because he wanted it painted. He's kind of an idiot, to be honest. Every time I walk out the door, I want to tiptoe so I don't scare him. But that's his current project right now, is painting this barn in a really scary, frightening way. Hey, you know what? You guys can do things that are really scary and frightening, can't you? Us agriculturalists, we get it done. We stoop to the levels of discomfort sometimes to get something done, because we can do hard things, right? And these conversations are sometimes that. These are sometimes the hard things. I'm going to stop my share for just a minute and just talk with you again for a second. I feel like sometimes as professionals in mental health, we do this thing where we almost deliver information when you have a baby and you get the what to expect when you're expecting book. Or you get that information where it's here is, how you set up your labor plan. And when the baby is crying afterwards, here's what you need to do. And then you go through the experience and you're it was nothing like that. There is no book that will prepare me for being pregnant and having children. Okay. Not enough information out there, because it's all different. Every pregnancy is different. Every childbirth is different. Every child is different. That's kind of the same in ag mental health, you guys, is that I'm going to give you some information. Professionals, and I would consider myself a professional and expert, but a lot of them like to just give it to you black and white. Here's how you have the conversation. Here's how you do it. This is what you can expect. And I'm here to tell you that that ain't how it works. Every conversation is going to be different. Every person's going to be different. Every situation is going to be different. So I am going to take that black and white that they like to do, and I'm going to gray it up a little bit. Okay. And you may notice I'm very enthusiastic, and this is a conversation that sometimes people are why are you so excited to talk about depression? And the reason why is because it fuels me to know that there is also hope. Where there is talk of stress, where there is talk of depression, where there is talk of suicide, there is also hope that fuels, right? And there is connection, and there is a lot of positivity. And that's an exciting thing. And that you all here have the capability to make a difference in someone's life regularly, maybe even save someone's life. that's exciting to me. That fuels me. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's get to it. Let's get to the nitty gritty. Okay. Because there are a few things that we need to understand when we're going to have conversations with people, when we're not sure what to do and what to say. We're not sure what to say. When I was training to be a counselor, I remember sitting my first day in grad school thinking, like, what have I gotten myself into? Because, like, how am I ever going to have all of the answers to all of the problems of all the people that are going to come talk to me? Like, isn't that my job, is to, like, help people, right? Guide people, give them advice. And I was really, really nervous about that, because that's a lot of information to hold on to, right? And what happened is, when you go to grad school for counseling, they actually teach you magic. You become a magician, actually. And that's what I'm going to share with you today, is the bits of magic that they shared with me that have helped me encourage people to solve certain problems in their life. Okay. 3 magic tricks we're going to talk about today. All right. I'm going to preface this, and we're going to use an example as we talk through these 3 magic tricks. All right. And I'm going to tell you this little bit of a story. If you heard me speak already at the Farm Bureau convention, just go with me. You probably heard pieces of this story. Okay. But I need this to be able to help you understand what to do here. So one day, I should say one night, my sweet husband was planting. And he was in the middle of planting season, and he got to the end of his day, and it rained, and he wasn't quite there. He wasn't quite done with his day. And so he calls me up inside the planter, and he says, "Adrienne, I have one more pass to go. Stupid meteorologists I don't know why they even have a job. The radar didn't even show anything I was supposed to get done." And maybe you've heard those conversations. Anybody? You know, we know how that is sometimes as the farmer's spouse, or maybe a friend has gone through this, or maybe it's you yourself, where you have definitely been in that frustrating situation, right? And when he got home, because the field was just across the road, and he got home, and in my mind, I instantly went to, okay, I'm the wife, I'm going to solve the problems. And the first thing I said to him, and keep in mind, please, before you judge, that this was early on. I didn't know all the ag things that I know now. Okay. But when he walked in the door, I said, "Honey, I feel like maybe you should have checked the weather." That is what I said to him to help solve this problem. And that didn't work. Turns out that led to an argument and me sleeping on the couch, because he had checked the weather multiple times, as every farmer does. I have learned now. Okay. I get it. You have every app on your phone. Like, that's fine. I should not have said that. Okay. But what we do is we go immediately to problem solving, don't we? When we want to help a situation or have a conversation with someone. And instead of that, we're going to learn the magic tricks. And the first one is listening to understand. Okay. Shut your mouth. That's what we say in our house. Just like zip it. All right. When someone is having some type of issue, when you're trying to talk to somebody that you have a feeling something is off, right? Whether it's just a stressful situation, like the example I'm using here, or you're worried about someone, the first thing that we're going to do, I'm going to talk about how to start those conversations in a little bit, but in the nitty gritty of the conversation, we're going to shut our mouths and just listen, right? And we're also going to turn our brains off a little bit, because we're not going to be focusing on what you're going to say next. We're going to be focusing on literally just listening. Hear the words, and also hear the needs behind the words, right? When my husband called me, he wasn't calling for advice, right? When you are talking to someone you're concerned about, they don't necessarily need to hear your advice. Here's a little secret. When you go to a therapist, even, we're not even allowed to give advice. Counselors don't give advice. We help you sort things out. It's a little different, and we use these tricks, but we don't give advice. We're not giving you answers. So keep that in mind, that when you're having conversations with someone, it's not about having the answer. All right. You're listening here for what the needs are. And we're going to use a couple little tools here to do that. In my situation, we're going to reflect. First of all, we're going to reflect by just repeating back, by saying back what those needs are. What is the underlying thing that's happening here? Is he really mad that he just didn't finish his field? Or is he mad because he's freaking tired? Is he mad because he just wanted that field to be done so he didn't have to move all the equipment? So he's feeling frustrated, right? He has feelings that are happening here. He has, the behaviors that are happening here that we need to help our loved ones understand when we're in these moments of crisis, no matter how big or small, right? So something you can do is listening to what those underlying needs are and then say that back to them. That's called a reflection. So I should have said to my husband, wow, Drew, I know you really wanted for this day to be over. Right? That's what he wanted. That's what he needed in the moment. He didn't, and so I'm going to say that back to him because that allows him to feel understood. Right? I could have said to him, you are so exhausted right now. And I would be so exhausted too. I'm just sick that you're not done yet. That is a reflection of what he's going through, helps him feel understood, etc. The second tool is ask. And I'm going to tell you honestly, the questions that you ask are actually like the least important. The things that you're asking, like, honestly, you don't really need to ask a whole lot, but I am putting the tool ask because I want you to know that it does make people feel like you're listening and feel like you want to understand when you're asking questions about the situation, right? I'm not asking him things like, well, didn't you check the weather? I shouldn't have been, right? I'm not asking those types of things. Or can't you just do it tomorrow? No, what I'm asking is for clarification about things that are going on. So, so you don't think you're going to have enough time to finish this, man, darn it. Like we're just asking things that help you understand the situation better. Particularly if someone is going through a depressive episode or you're in a crisis situation that you're concerned with someone, just asking questions to learn more about their experiences, where you want to go. And then you can use the tool of repeating too, when you're listening, that even though we're using our ears, right, we can also repeat back what people are saying in just a little bit of a different way, which just helps, again, helps them understand that you get it. Okay. So, when you do that, when they feel clarified and understood, we're on the right page. Second magic trick here, all right, is that we're going to use empathy. Notice that I'm not talking about advice. I'm not talking about things you have to say, right? I'm not talking about problem solving in that more direct way. We're using our magic tricks. I'm telling you, you guys got to trust this because they said in grad school, trust the process, trust the process, trust the process. And the first year, I was just like, you guys, like, give me some real tools here. I need to help people, and I don't feel like I'm going to. But this is what they taught, and I'm telling you now, it's crazy how it works. Use empathy. Brene Brown, if you've never heard of her, you need to, because she's a fabulous, I'm not sure what her actual title is. She's just like the knower of all things, and I love her. And she said, in order to empathize with someone's experience, you must be willing to believe them as they see it and not how you imagine their experience to be. She talks about the difference between sympathy and empathy. And we know that if we are, for example, my mother went through a visitation line this morning, okay? And when we lose someone, we want to say things like, I'm sorry for your loss, or we're kind of disconnecting, saying like, you're going through something right now, and I'm sorry about it. But empathy is different. All right. When you're having a conversation about someone in distress, that's not what we're doing. We're saying we're connecting, we're feeling connection. We're saying you're down in this deep, dark hole, and I'm coming down here with you for a second so that I can understand what you're going through. Okay. And even though you may not agree with what they're saying, maybe, Drew in that moment in this example, he was going on and on, like, I'm not going to get this field ever. This isn't ever going to get finished. It's going to take me for, 3 or 4 days. It wasn't. There was nothing on the radar for the next few days or on the outlook or whatever. So like, it was going to be fine. But that's not what we're doing. We're using empathy to see the situation as they see it. Even if you don't agree, even if it's not real, Okay. What we're empathizing with is the feeling, the frustration. No matter how wrong or right a person is, their feeling is still real, right? They're still angry. They're still sad. They're still depressed. They're still feeling that. Okay. And that is the tip to helping connect. The magic, right? Is to connect that you get it. Because a lot of times people who are going through depressive episodes or even just stressful times is that we feel sometimes like people just don't get it and people want to be understood. So that's what we're doing here. We're listening with empathy, wrong way. And finally, we are validating. And the picture of the cow here is for nothing other than to make you smile. It has no connection to what we're talking about at all, but I just think it's really funny. And so you can smile at this because we want to keep it light, right? Okay. Validating again means that even though whatever is behind the frustration, behind the sadness, right? Even though that might not be real and you may not want to agree with that, that's not your job right now in those really tough times. Those really tough conversations are just to say your feelings are real. Your feelings are valid. It is okay to feel what you do. It is okay to be angry about not being able to finish up. It is okay to feel sadness. It is okay to feel lonely, right? Even if you're surrounded by people. There was a time in college that I went through a small depressive bit and surrounded by people, I still felt insanely lonely, and that is where that even, a therapist can help or healthier conversations down the road can help to kind of clarify, thinking more realistic thoughts. There's different therapies that can happen, or even just, again, tips and conversation later. But right now, that's not what we're doing. When we're concerned with someone, we're validating them and we're validating their experience, okay? Because people need to feel seen. I will tell you, I gave a keynote speech once at an annual meeting, and a guy came up to me, and he was probably, 50 years old. He was a full-time farmer, but he just so happened to be a member of his local choir. And so he was in the community choir, and this was the conversation that he shared with me was about it in 2019 when things were really rough for him. And his choir director is not at all involved in agriculture, but she said to him, hey, afterwards, she said, hey, I know you're a farmer. I keep hearing farmers in the news having a really tough time. How's everything on your farm going? And he said, just someone seeing him, right? She had no idea that he had been struggling. He had been having a really hard time, financially on the farm, but just like in his own brain, in his own head, he had been having a hard time. He said it just switched. The light bulb just went on for him, that people do see him, people do care. And just feeling that you're not alone can make such a difference in your mental health and in your outlook. And in fact, actually, connectedness is what is considered a protective factor against depression and suicide, which just means that when you feel connected, science tells us, statistics tell us that when you feel connected to someone or seen or doing things the way other people do, it can help deter, I guess, the symptoms of suicide and symptoms of depression, not symptoms, but factors leading up to suicide. So I'm going to stop my share here. Peek at my clock for a second because I think we've got about 10 minutes left. And I just want to help reiterate that overall, when we're talking about having a conversation with someone, when we're listening with empathy to understand, and we are validating those people, those are your key things here. Stop trying to calm the storm, right? That is what we are focused on all the time, is how do we put out this fire? How do we calm the storm? The storm will pass. Calm yourself, right? Calm your friend, calm your loved one. We're just focusing on validating. We're not worrying about what's going on. We're just worrying about helping them feel better. And I know that's tough because a lot of people say, I want answers. There's so many people who have talked to me about, how do I get my dad to go to therapy? How do I get when I'm in therapy, how do I get myself to, where am I going to go so they can help me through this and show me what to do? And the thing is, what they're showing you, when we're talking about therapy or moving, past a depressive episode or past a time of stress or whatever, what we're focusing on is not how do we put out all the fires in our life. That's part of it. But what we're doing more is focusing on how you're responding to the fires and the storms, right? And that's what we're doing in these conversations that we have with people. So I got to tell you, I did learn. I put my counselor hat on. That's what I did. After I had this tough conversation with my husband, the next, fall rolled around, okay? And this time, of course, they were harvesting. We grow corn and beans, and they were harvesting. And he called me, and he was like, Adrienne, these meteorologists did it again. It was supposed to be raining all day, and it's 90 degrees, and now I'm going to have to be out in the field all day long. And he just was not a happy camper. And you know what I did? I remembered this. I will never forget the conversations that we had and how I did the worst thing ever. And even as a counselor, my wife had a problem solving came on, and I was like, okay, we gotta try again with this one. So when he called me and he was saying this, first I listened. I didn't say a thing, right? I listened for what it was he needed, and I reflected that, and I said, I am so sorry, Drew. I know you were really wanting to come home and have a break and work on some other things, right? That was the need. It's not, that's what's underneath, right? I asked him some questions about it. I validated. I was like, yeah, I'd be pissed off too. I said that your feelings are real. Even if you're cursing out the meteorologist right now, who's just doing his best, what you are feeling is real. And that's okay that you have that. And instead of me sleeping on the couch that night, my sweet husband cracked a joke, and he said, all right, well, I'll talk to you later. And he was like hunky dory just after that phone call. We think we need answers, but really what we need is to feel connected, to feel heard, right? That's what we got to focus on. Okay, since I don't have a ton of time left, I do want to make sure that I talk about some conversation starters, because I know that is one of the questions I get a lot with how do we have these conversations, right? So I'm gonna exit out of this real quick and pull up some of the websites. I don't know if you've already received the links that I shared or not, but if you haven't, there will be some links that are shared. One of them is just the American Suicide Prevention website, and they give you these particular suggestions, and you guys know how to read, so I'm not going to go through a whole bunch of stuff, but ultimately they lay this out for you really nicely about how the back and forth has to go. And ultimately what they say is like, hey, we're just going to refer first to what it is that you're seeing. Okay. You can allow it to come up kind of naturally, right? There was a gal that called me once, and she said, I'm so glad that I heard your talk, because one of my employees on the farm was just acting really funky. Now, there's a lot of signs that you can look for in people to know if they're a little bit, if something seems wrong. This webinar is not on that topic. We can have a whole other webinar devoted to just that, and maybe you'll see some of those things come up in your series. But I'm, for the sake of now, saying trust your gut, right? If people's normal is not their normal anymore, if like this gal said, this guy used to stay afterward and talk with us, and then he all of a sudden just would leave right as soon as he could clock out, sort of, he would just take out. He was just irritable all the time, and that just wasn't his self. So she said, I'm so glad that I, listened to your conversation or how to talk to somebody about this. And she did exactly this. She just said to him what she was noticing. She said, hey, we'll call him Frank. Frank, I missed you around here. I wondered if everything's okay. I know you used to hang out and chat with us, and I don't know if you're frustrated with us or if there's something going on. We care about you. Okay. So that's how you can start it, is just what it is that you have noticed. Now, obviously we have to be careful, because we don't want people to feel guilty for not sticking around. Maybe there's an activity, maybe Farm Bureau. Somebody used to come to Farm Bureau all the time. They don't anymore, and you want to bring that up as a way to kind of start that conversation. And maybe when you say that, they start to feel guilty that they haven't come. And if they're already dealing with depression, anxiety, that's tough. You can even just say, I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty or anything. I just miss you. And I just know that, we've had some mental health conversations, and I just feel like it's I care about you. I want to make sure that I'm checking in with you. I want you to make sure that you do it in your own words. This is what I'm saying. They give you the black and white, and this other mental health first aid has some more suggestions for that and very specific things that you can talk about. Making yourself, in a comfortable environment, right? Not in front of everybody, but ultimately, you can even just say, I feel really awkward saying anything about this right now, but I would feel really bad if I didn't say something and something happened. Are you good? Is there something going on? Whatever it is that feels natural for you, those are the words that you should use. And I think that that's the best way to kind of start the conversation. So let's see here. I'm going to stop this share and just make sure I've covered everything I wanted to cover. Just like when you guys are working on equipment, right? Or painting a barn and you're doing things that you think you can handle on your own. And then all of a sudden you realize, I can't reach that last bit without probably falling off of this ladder. And I really would like to not leave my children and wife, because we do have 4 children here that are very young and they need their father around. When you realize you can't reach the roof, for example, of that barn that you're painting, it's okay to call in for help, right? It's okay to do that. And that's what I want you guys to know too, that you don't have to be a doctor or a therapist to show someone that you care, right? You guys just have to, all our job is to be that front line of defense, right? We are the ones that are going to see when something is off in someone. That's going to be all of us, just like Dillon, that the example that he gave where he, had to talk to parents first before anyone else, right? We have to be the people that are comfortable with getting uncomfortable and reaching out to people and feeling okay to talk to them, but knowing that sometimes we are going to have to pass that buck and encourage them to see someone else, to see a therapist, to see a doctor or whatever. I want to mention to you that if there's ever a crisis situation where you're worried about someone's harming themselves or someone else in that moment, call 911. You can actually call 988 now. That is the new mental health crisis line. Rather than 911, you can call 988. I think if it's immediately a frightening situation, 911 is still probably the better number to call, just as far as us rural folks that need someone there right away. But then a doctor, even your medical doctor, can help you find someone. If you're looking for a therapist, I'm going to tell you right now, I have no mental health conditions that are diagnosed. I probably have one, but there are none that are diagnosed. I still see a therapist. Okay. Therapists are for anyone. It doesn't matter how stressed out you are or what, where you're at on that continuum of your mental health. Anyone who wants to be a better human, a better parent, a better spouse, right, can see a therapist, and a lot of good can be done. So don't feel like awkward about reaching out to a therapist just because, you're not sure if you have some condition or not. Just if you're in a period of life where you want to learn to do something better or be better, like it's a great idea to see a therapist. And sometimes you have to search around. Again, that's a whole content for another day, but I just want to, and the best way to do that where you're at to find someone, honestly, is if you go to Psychology Today. I was going to pull it up, but I think we're running short on time. So psychologytoday.com. You might have to figure out how to spell psychology. It's a tricky one, but there is a tab at the top of that website that says find a therapist. I did an Oklahoma search earlier and I came up with like 15 pages of therapists in Oklahoma. Many of them now do virtual therapy. Nearly everyone on that page did. So there are dozens and dozens of therapists. I know sometimes the waits are long. There's different issues with, finances and all that type of stuff. So again, that's a webinar for another day, but they're there. And ultimately, when we show we care, that can do just as much good sometimes when we step up. Remember that how to have a conversation, that conversation that you want to have with someone that you're concerned about, it's not just about a one conversation thing. It's not just about asking, one time how someone's doing. We all have to be in a lifestyle that we have adopted where mental health is something that becomes more comfortable with us. I can guarantee that Dillon, from the first time he talked about this with anyone, to where he's at now, filming something, being in a magazine, whatever. I bet his comfortability in just talking about his story is like it's way easier now, right? That's what we all have to do with our own situations. I'm not saying you all have to come out of the woodwork and talk about your depression. That's not what I'm saying, honestly. You do what's comfortable for you, okay? No one is required to do that or should feel guilty for not sharing their own personal stories. But what you can do is maybe you're on social media and you decide that you're going to post a meme about mental health, right? Or you're going to talk after this presentation, you go to some group that you're in, book club, right? And you say at book club, you know what? I actually attended a mental health conversation today and it wasn't so bad, right? Or, well, that's what you say anyway. But we have to be that example of making mental health a little bit less awkward. And when we can do that in just our everyday conversations, and the fact that you are even here, participants, shows that you are in the right step to making it less uncomfortable for yourself. And then that makes you become this safe place for other people to come to when they feel like they're ready to reach out, because we know that's tough. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I'm happy to answer questions. I have not opened the Q&A yet, but we will take some questions now.
Adrienne, that was incredible. I am just so thankful that you are, you just love Oklahoma Farm Bureau like we do, and Farm Bureau and beyond, because there are people on here that are not members. We have 4 questions that we'd like to get to. So the first question, Adrienne, would be, would you say stress is caused more from financial problems or the person is being overworked?
Okay, so this is just my personal opinion. And of course, I don't provide counseling directly to farmers. So this is my own farmers experience, my experience. And I have done lots of presentations over the last few years across the country. So I have talked to hundreds and hundreds of farmers at this point. I honestly think it depends on where you're at. If you look at the statistics, like American Farm Bureau has put out statistics on their Farm State of Mind website. Farmstateofmind.org is another great place to find resources if you're ready to help someone to the next step of learning more. And you can learn more yourself there as well. They do mention financial problems. That's something that comes up over and over and over again when in the statistics. I even read an article once about a gentleman who he was a full-time farmer and died by suicide. And his family reported that he was constantly worried about money. But they were like, we were never in any financial trouble. So I don't know that financial problems themselves, would necessarily be the answer. But I do think that there's a lot of worry when it comes to finances because of how volatile our industry is. So definitely that. But I will tell you, in our house, our financial problems are definitely there. But we definitely, I would say, less even of being overworked, but more of a work-home imbalance for us, I know is our much bigger thing. And I know a lot of young farmers will say that as well. And more seasoned farmers as well have talked about the idea that, yeah, it is being overworked, essentially, that we are overworking ourselves too, because we don't know when to turn it off, because we don't have the 9-to-5 structure in our day where we go to our job, for example. So I don't know that there's a more or less, but I will tell you that's where the statistics say, and just that's kind of our personal perspective.
Awesome. Thank you. So the second question is, how do you show empathy and have the conversation to seek help with someone who has bizarre behaviors and delusions? Would you suggest someone closer to the individual, such as a child or a sibling, have that conversation if they get confrontational?
So caveats, definitely, if you feel like someone is going to be injured or confrontational way that is like, that can be abusive, that's kind of a whole different ballgame. And I genuinely believe that you yourself should begin some therapy to be able to talk with a professional about how to go about that conversation and how to set your own boundaries. That's much more important for you to be safe and know that you are safe. But I will say that we all have to do with what we're comfortable with when it comes to having the conversation. I haven't mentioned this yet, but we have to remember that we only control ourselves. We cannot control another person. you know, if you know someone who's died by suicide, I know that the person I've lost closest that has died by suicide, I definitely spent a lot of time going, I am a counselor. How did I not see that? You know, we easily live with guilt when it comes to when people make tragic decisions like that. Similarly, when you are a caretaker or have someone that is going through something that has, you know, someone that has delusions or things like that, that is a mental health condition. Like those are symptoms of a mental health condition. So we have to remember that this isn't a person that's necessarily like easily choosing to think the way that they do. This is a condition that the way that their brain functions is totally different than the way yours functions. So we have to, you know, it's just a little bit of a different situation. And I think my best suggestion would be to wait until you know that they're in almost a good place mentally, you know, because we know there's a lot of ups and downs. And I know in the, you know, the people that I talk to, I have several family members that have different mental health conditions, and I always try to wait until we're like on the upswing before we have the conversations about, okay, like last night was really bad, or, you know, okay, you're thinking some funky things here right now. So yeah, waiting for good moments is a good suggestion. And yes, that if you're not comfortable to have a conversation with someone, but you are worried about them, you certainly can have a conversation with someone else that can have that conversation with them. You may not be the best person, right? I get that question a lot from like lenders and seed reps and people who aren't necessarily directly related to a person, but they're the ones who are noticing these symptoms. And they're like, should it be me? If you feel comfortable with it, let it be you. But if you feel like calling their spouse or a child or sibling that you know they have a better relationship, that's okay too. It's okay to say that's still kind of doing your due diligence. That if you care for someone, that's what you're comfortable with. Kind of passing that off is okay. We just need to not wait. We need to not assume that someone else is having conversations with a person that we're worried about, because that's when that person goes unnoticed and falls through the cracks and down the river and whatever, and bad things happen. So hope that answers that.
Yes, that is wonderful. It looks like we're running a little short on time, and the last question was actually about some educational grants. And so I just directly messaged that person about grants on AFBF's website as well as OKFB website. There was more of a broader question about educational grants
Now we'll say
that we
Farmers, FRSAN, Farmer Rancher Stress Assistance Network is another place that you guys can go to. Those are regional. I'm not sure what region you guys are in there, but those would be another place to look for grants.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I am just speaking in for all of Oklahoma Farm Bureau and beyond, because we know that there's a lot more states that are represented here today. Adrienne, you did a fabulous job. We are so thankful that you came and you accepted our invitation to join our very first Cultivating Healthy Minds. We are so grateful to you. Thank you so much. All of her information will be on our website with all of those links that she has talked about. It's been on there for a couple of weeks. So shout out to our comms team for Oklahoma Farm Bureau. Also, our next Cultivating Healthy Minds, is going to be Friday, September 8th at noon. You have to sign up again for that second call. Please make sure you do this. After this call, you will receive a survey. Please fill that out for us. And that just gives us some really good feedback. We want you all to know, Oklahoma Farm Bureau and beyond, that we love you, we care for you. We know that this is an important topic, and we want to make sure that you are prepared for anything that might come your way. So great job. We are so excited. We can't wait to see you September 8th. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good day.